All right, welcome back. So last time we talked about if statements, if else statements, and if else if statements. There's one more type of conditional expression that I want to talk about, which is a switch statement. And a switch statement is another way to write an if else if statement. So they can both be converted vice versa. So you can convert an if statement to a switch statement, and you can convert a switch statement to an if else statement. But there are use cases where you want to use a switch statement over a if else statement. And one example would be if you have enums, and enum is another data type in Java, but it's not a primitive data type. It's a reference data type. What that means is it can be represented as an object where it can have its own methods and such. But we'll talk more about reference types later on. So let's create an enum, and we'll go back to the pizza example. So we'll do enum. We'll call it pizza type, and we'll have different types of pizzas. We'll have a plain slice, and notice that I'm not using camel case here. I'm using all caps with the underscore in between. So this is how you would usually define a enum variable. So like this is a type of enum. So all the pizza types are going to be in this format. So we have a plain slice, we have a pepperoni slice. Can't spell pepperoni. We have a veggie slice. So we have 3 slices, right? And this is how you create an enum, and this is how you define the types in enums. So enums can have multiple. They can have as many like types as you want, and they can have functions, like I said. But for now, we're just going to create enum with just 3 different types: plain, pepperoni, and veggie. And we're going to create our main method next. So a shortcut to create a main method is, instead of typing out public static void main blah blah blah, you can just do psvm, and there you go. So let's do it one more time. You do psvm, you get a pop-up, you click return or enter on your Mac keyboard, and you get the autocomplete feature. So let's also create a function called update sales. So let's do that. So static void update sales, and we'll pass in an enum here, pizza type. And let's actually show one more thing about enums before we get started. So enums can be declared inside a class. They can be declared inside like its own class. So you can create like an enum class. So new class, the kind is enum, and you can call it pizza type. And you have a public enum pizza type. Here it's not public because it's inside a class, but we can make it public, we can make it private, we can make it whatever you want. But you can also make this private. We'll talk about public and private later, like I said. Actually, in the next lesson, we'll be talking about functions and how to declare its scope and access. So let's keep this non-public or private. This is actually, the default is package protected. So anything inside, we don't have a package, so we'll talk about that later. So we have an enum here. Let's delete the enum class. We don't need that because we're going to declare it inside our main main class. We have a function called update sales, and we pass in this enum pizza type. So the reason why we want to do that is we want to say, okay, if it's a plain slice, we want to say we have sold another plain slice. So we want to figure out how many plain slices we sell each day, how many pepperoni slices we sell each day, and how many veggie slices we sell each day. So we want to have a count of how many our sales for the day. So let's create 3 variables that hold a count. So we'll make it static because it has to be used inside these static functions. So static int plain slices sold equals 0, static int pepperoni slices sold equals 0, and finally static int veggie, hold on a second, there we go, veggie slices sold equals 0. So now we have our counters to see how many slices we sold of each type, and we have to update these counters. So we can say switch, this is how you create a switch statement, switch pizza type. So you want to, so basically this is your input you want to go on. So you're saying based on this pizza type, if the case is a plain slice, you want to say plain slices sold equals plain slices sold plus 1. We want to increment it by 1. Okay. And we also need a break here. Break. Okay. So, yeah. So that's just one statement, right? You want to do it for every single slice. We do have another case. So now, if the pizza type is plain slice, we update the count by 1. If the case is a pepperoni slice, we want to say pepperoni slices sold equals pepperoni slices sold plus 1. So we take the current value of pepperoni, which let's say it's 10, we add 1, or whatever it is. Right now it's 0. So in the first iteration, it will be 0 plus 1. So now pepperoni equals 1, and then it'll be like 1 plus 1, pepperoni equals 2. So you increment by 1 each time. And let's do our third case, which is veggie slice. Okay. And we say veggie slice sold equals veggie slices sold plus 1. Okay. So now we have our 3 cases, and we forgot to break. So what is this break? This break is to say that this case is over. So you can have multiple cases. So for example, case plain slice and case let's say, this is a bad example, but case margarita, actually that's too hard. Alright, whatever, I'll try it. Margarita, I can't spell it now. Let's do something else. Buffalo chicken slice, separate by comma. So we have a buffalo chicken slice. We say both these cases, we update plain slices sold to 1, which is inaccurate, because now we're saying if we sell a plain slice or a buffalo chicken slice, we're going to update number of plain slices we sold, right? Really, buffalo chicken slice should be its own case with its own break. So we say buffalo chicken slices sold equals buffalo chicken slices sold plus 1, and then we break. So what I'm trying to say, what we're trying to say is that the break here, breaks can have multiple cases. It can have 1 or more cases, and it does the statement before the break for each of those cases. So now we have, for each case, we have a break, because we want to say that only plain slices update plain slices sold, only pepperoni slices update pepperoni slices sold, and so forth. So we have to have a break at the end of each case, unless we want the same case or multiple cases to update the same thing, which in this case we don't, because each case is different. So we have our 4 cases, and we want to go ahead and call this and print out the number of, before we call it, let's print out the number of slices sold. So number of plain slices sold plus plain slices sold. Let's just copy and paste this and just do it 4 times. And then just change it. So instead of plain, we do pepperoni. Don't forget to change the value too. This is going to be pepperoni. Number of veggie. Number of buffalo chicken slices sold. Buffalo chicken slices sold. Alright, so now we have our 4 print statements. So we can actually print out how many slices we sold of each type, right? But then we actually have to call this function to actually do anything. So right now, if you print this out, it'll all be 0 because we didn't actually call this function to actually update our count of how many you sold, right? So let's go ahead and print that out, and you should get 0 for each. If it builds, well, it'll take a long time. Okay, there we go. So we should also add a colon here to make it better formatted. Okay, but we can get 0 for each for now because we're not actually updating anything. So let's go ahead and update something. If you update something after the print line statements, that doesn't make any sense because it's going to update after we print out how much we have sold for each. So we have to do it before. So let's do, for example, pizza type dot plain slice. So now we call this function and say, okay, if it's a plain slice, update the count by 1. So if we run this again, we should get 1 for number of plain slices sold. So again, the switch statement is good for using enums. So enums are just a way to compare things. So like, for example, if you want to have a value for the type of pizza and you want to have different types of pizzas, right? You can just use a switch statement to go through this enum and say, okay, if it's a plain slice, we do this. If it's a pepperoni slice, we do this, and so forth. So now, if we want to do this again, we sell another plain slice, right? Then we should get 2. Right, and then if you do update sales, pizza type dot buffalo chicken, and we do that 3 times, and then we do update sales, pizza type dot pepperoni. So then we run it, so we should get 2 plain slices sold, 3 buffalo and 1 pepperoni, and 0 veggie slices. Seems like the vegetarians didn't come in today, because everyone is buying either plain pepperoni buffalo chicken, nobody's buying veggie slices. So this is an example of how you could use enums and switch statements. So one thing we can improve on this is instead of saying plain slices sold equals plain slices sold plus 1, we can just say plain slices sold plus plus. And what that does is it increments this integer by 1. Okay, we do the same thing here. Plus plus. There's also minus minus. If you want to decrement it by 1, there's also, those are main 2. Okay, so then we have veggie slices sold. Then we have buffalo chicken slices sold. Okay, so now if we run this again, we should still get 2103. And we do. Okay, so that sums up the switch statements lesson. In our next lesson, we'll be talking about functions and how we can declare functions, how we can use functions from other classes, and how we can modify the function signature. So see you in the next lesson.